I know he has a job to do, and that I have no doubt. Fair play he gave me kind, and for that day it shut my mouth. Take me back to Rainery, I'm living near the glen. I'm going to advertise myself, I will get work again. I have driven for the Corla, and many more as well. But I won't go back to Barry, I would sooner go to hell. Oh, Lucas falling know my way, I've an offer of a job. I'd a phone call from Don Leary that he'd work back in the bog. Now we're back near Jory Buckley's, that is in Forries. The bog is tough, the going is rough, and there is no time for sprees. Getting back to Barry, boys don't get this wrong. For Barry Buckley, he's a decent chap, and he pays as good as done. I've 3 weeks left with Larry, working in the bog. Barry, will you consider this and try and give me back my job? Take me back to Rainery, I'm living near the glen. I'm going to advertise myself, I will get work again. I have driven for the Corla, and many more as well. I might get back with Barry, because Pascal did as well.
The skies of Lebanon are burning, those mighty cedars bleeding in the heat. They show the pictures on the television of women and children dying in the streets. Yet we're still at it in our own place, in trying to reach the future through the past, still trying to carve tomorrow from a tombstone. But hey, don't listen to me, this wasn't meant to be no sad song. We've sung too much of that before. Right now I only want to be here with you till the morning dew comes falling. I want to take you to the island, to trace your footprints in the sands, and in the evening, when there's no one around, we'll make love to the sounds of the ocean. They're raising banners over by the markets, whitewashing slogans on the shipyard walls, witch doctors praying for a mighty showdown. No way our holy flag is going to fall. Up here we sacrifice our children to feed those worn out dreams of yesterday. We teach them dying will lead us into glory. But hey, don't listen to me, this wasn't meant to be no sad song. We've heard too much of that before. Right now I only want to be here with you till the morning dew comes falling. I want to take you to the island, to trace your footprints in the sand, and in the evening, when there's no one around, we'll make love to the sounds of the ocean. I guess us plain folks don't know all the story. I know that peace and love is coming out. I guess those young boys dying in the ditches is what this freedom thing is all about. And that twisted wreckage down the main street, it will bring us all together in the end. As we go marching down the road to freedom, freedom. But hey, don't listen to me. This wasn't meant to be no sad song. We've heard too much of that before. Right now I only want to be here with you till the morning dew comes falling. I want to take you to the island, to trace your footsteps in the sands. And in the evening, when there's no one around, we'll make love to the sounds of the ocean.
Kind of man to keep his thumb jammed in the dam that holds his dreams in. He thinks the tulips grow beneath the snow. He's mad as he can be, but Margaret only sees that sometimes our unborn children in his eyes. Let us go to the banks of the ocean, where the walls rise above the Zuyder Zee. Long ago I used to be a young man, and dear Margaret remembers that for me. The windmills whirl the winter in, she winds his muffler tighter. They sit in the kitchen, and tea with whiskey takes away the dew. He sees her for a moment, calls her name, she makes his bed up, humming some old love song. He learned it when the tune was very new. He hums a line or two, they hum together in the night. The Dutchman falls asleep, and Margaret blows the candle out. Let us go to the banks of the ocean, where the walls rise above the Zuyder Zee. Long ago I used to be a young man, and dear Margaret remembers that for me. I think I missed a verse or so.
In Clondrohid parish, all down the years, came great young characters through those panto years. But we had a special one, a red-haired Ardeen boy, and when he passed away, our parish mourned its favourite son. All around Clondrohid, we will for years speak about Ted Connell, and some will shed some tears. This Clondrohid boy is gone. He'll sing no more, but there's something that I know. We'll never see his likes again. He loved to laugh and sing. He loved the jar, especially down in Danny McLean's bar. As sure as the waters flow beneath the Cartuck Bridge, you'll be remembered for all your songs and the panto gigs all around Clondrohid. We will for years speak about Ted Connell, and some will shed some tears. Our Clondrohid boy is gone. He'll sing no more, but there's something that I know. We'll never see his likes again. When the hunting season came, you should be there to see his friends congregate back in Shronagare. He was loved by our children too, and I believe he'd another mighty friend. He's here tonight, Councillor Michael Creed. All around Clondrohid, we will for years speak about Ted Connell, and some will shed some tears. Our Clondrohid boy is gone. He'll sing no more, but there's something that I know. We'll never see his likes again. Now, I just made the last verse this minute. Now to conclude the song, and I know I'm right. Ted is looking down upon us here tonight. I can feel his presence now. Dan Creedon by his side. If the night was dull, there are the boys to keep it alive. All together, all around Clondrohid. We'll sing for years, speak about Ted Connell, and some will shed some tears. Our Clondrohid boy is gone. He'll sing no more, but there's something that I know. We'll never see his likes again. We'll never see his likes again.
Alas, those walls came tumbling down. Alas, they are no more. Where dwell those noble clansmen, those gallant men of yore? Within those walls brave men were born, and many met their doom. We all lament the day it went, the castle of Macroom. Rinuccini stay there, and Willem Penn as well. And if those walls could only speak, what stories they would tell. The proud Salon flows gently on as I sit here in the gloom. Seems to say a sad farewell to the castle of Macroom. The castle grounds are lonesome now, they miss those ancient walls. For the older generation, happy days they must recall. And many's the happy hour was spent, and many's the love did bloom. Many's the maid was wooed and won round the castle of Macroom. Now to end the story, sad though it has been, those walls are gone forever, but their grandeur we have seen. My thoughts go back to happier days as memory fills this room. I see again in fantasy the castle of Macroom.
No. Have you heard about Jean McCarthy and the bullock he had for sale? He lives in Carrigafuka, up a mighty high lane. He runs a dairy herd up there and he bullocks on the trail. But I'll have to tell you the story about this bullock he had for sale. It was Larry Creed that loaded him that morning in the yard. And Jean, sure, he was helping and his eyes were full of stars. The trailer was that bit shaky, but I don't know who to blame, because they lost him on their way into town, or else it was going down the lane. And can anybody tell me where this bullock he did go? We know they're faced in Farmercroom, but beyond that we don't know. Some say he's gone towards Mushera, and more say Slavin Hill. Wherever he'll go, he'll be always known as the bullock they failed to sell. Now, when Jean found out that he was gone, he lost the bloody head. He said, Larry, run down to Chapel Cross and see if he's gone up the hill. They searched the town all over, but 'twas labour in vain. He'll have to be known as the bullock now that failed to make the sale. Well, they searched Raleigh all over and out to the Mons Cross. At this stage, Jean got mad and said, I might as well scratch my arse, for the night is quickly falling and we'll have to come off his trail. Oh, he'll have to be known as the bullock now that failed to make the sale. But when Sean Creedy heard about it, he only shook his head, saying, when I had bullocks like him, I'd send for your Uncle Hugh Crahoor instead. I wouldn't be dealing with shaky trailers or making no delay. That's another story I'll have to tell to you someday. It was early the next morning. Jean, he woke up like a lark, saying I must get the boys together and try and get this bullock back. But Connie Cockery, he overslept. He wasn't up till 8, but to his surprise when he got up, all the cabbage it was ate. And can anybody tell me where this bullock he did go? We know that I faced in Farmercroom, but beyond that we don't know. Some say he's gone towards Mushera, and more say Slavin Hill. Wherever he'll go, he'll be always known as the bullock they failed to sell. So now to conclude and to finish, and I hope you like my song. This bullock, sure, he came back himself, and the farming is going on. Jean, sure, he got drunk that night. He drank 20 pints of beer. Boys, now raise your glasses and give that man a cheer. Up, McCarthy!
I spent Monday on Strawberry Hill, where I fell and I landed on your windowsill. I hung there by a golden fine web I had woven from the hair of your head. I spent Tuesday just walking through town, where I saw a gold angel come tumbling down, and walking with seagulls up in the elm tree, when the wind runs our fingers above the dark leaves. And oh, will you meet me on Saturday night? We'll dance in the shadows between the street lights, and between these two rivers, well, I know where we'll meet. It's on Princess Street. I spent Wednesday doing nothing at all, till late in the evening the wind came to call. And I stood at my window and danced a handstand, the sun in our hair and the birds in our hand. The next morning I awoke from a dream of where the fish lie in their beds of deep green. And I watched Thursday morning put on its new coat, a cloud at the elbow and blue sky at the throat. And oh, will you meet me on Saturday night? We'll dance in the shadows between the street lights. Between these two rivers, well, I know where we'll meet. It's on Princess Street. It's been Friday just counting the time, while up in some tower I heard the bells chime. And I saw a great cold fish take wing like a swan, and he told me that Saturday it wouldn't be long. And oh, will you meet me on Saturday night? We'll dance in the shadows between the street lights. And between these two rivers, well, I know where we'll meet. It's on Princess Street. I think Sean Lynch is next.
On my finger, you brought love like I've never known. You gave life to our children, and to me a reason to go on. As you're my bread when I'm hungry, you're my shelter from troubled wind, you're my anchor in life's ocean, but most of all, you're my best friend. When I need hope and inspiration, you're always strong when I'm tired and weak. I could search the whole world over, you'll still be everything that I need. 'Cause you're my bread when I'm hungry, you're my shelter from troubled wind, you're my anchor in life's ocean, but most of all, you're my best friend. You're my bread when I'm hungry, you're my shelter from troubled wind, you're my anchor in life's ocean, but most of all, you're my best friend.
It was there, Maggie dear, with our hearts full of cheer, we strayed neath the moon's gentle beam. 'Twas there I first met you, the light in your eyes awoke in my heart a sweet thrill. Though now far away, still my thoughts fondly stray to the old rustic bridge by the mill. Beneath it the stream gently ripples, around it the birds love to thrill. Though now far away, still my thoughts fondly stray to the old rustic bridge by the mill. I keep in my memory our love of the past, with me it is as bright as of old, for deep in my heart it is planted to last. In absence it never grows cold. I think of you, darling, when lonely at night, and when all is peaceful and still. My heart wanders back in a dream of delight to the old rustic bridge by the mill. Beneath it the stream gently ripples, around it the birds love to thrill. Though now far away, still my thoughts fondly stray to the old rustic bridge by the mill. That's it.
Well done. Fabulous. Very nice.
I was 18 when I came to town. They call it the summer of love. Burning babies, burning flags, the hops against the doves. I took a job at the steamin' way down in Colton Street. And I fell in love with the laundry girl that was working next to me. Her brown hair zigzagged around her face in a look of half surprise. Like a fox caught in the headlights, there was animal in her eyes. She said to me, can't you see, I'm not the factory kind, and if you don't take me out of here, I'll lose my mind. Oh, she was a rare thing, as fine as a bee's wing, so fine a breath of wind might blow her away. And she was a lost child, she was running wild. She said, so long as there's no price in love, I'll stay. I wouldn't want her any other way. We bussed around the market towns in Picking Down in Kent. We could tinker pots and pans and knives wherever we went. We were camping down the Gower one time and the work was mighty good. She wouldn't wait for the harvest, I thought we should. I said to her, we'll settle down and get a few acres dug, with a fire burning in the hearth and babbies on the rug. She said, oh man, you foolish man, that surely sounds like hell. You might be lord of half the world, you'll not own me as well. Oh, she was a rare thing, as fine as a bee's wing, so fine a breath of wind might blow her away. And she was a lost child, she was running wild. She said, so long as there's no price in love, I'll stay. You wouldn't want her any other way. We were drinking more in those days, our tempers reached a pitch. Like a fool I let her run away when she took the rambling niche. And the last I heard, she's living rough, dapping back in the Derby beach, with a bottle of White Horse in her pocket, a wolf found at her feet. They say that she got married once to a man called Romany Brown. Even the gypsy caravan was too much like settling down. They say her roses faded, harsh weather and hard booze. Maybe that's the price you pay for the chains that you refuse. Oh, she was a rare thing, as fine as a bee's wing, and I miss her more than ever words could say. If I could just taste all of her wildness now, if I could hold her in my arms today, I wouldn't want her any other way.
It's a working man I am. I've been down underground. I swear to God, if I ever see the sun, or for any length of time, I can hold it in my mind. I never again will go down underground. At the age of 16 years, oh, he quarrelled with his peers, who vowed they'd never see another one. To the dark recess of the mind, where you age before your time, and the coal dust lies heavy on your lungs. It's a working man I am. I've been down underground. I swear to God, if I ever see the sun, or for any length of time, I can hold it in my mind. I never again will go down underground. At the age of 64, oh, he'll greet you at the door and gently lead you by the arm to the dark recess of the mind. Oh, he'll take you back in time and tell you of the hardships that were had. It's a working man I am. I've been down underground. I swear to God, if I ever see the sun, or for any length of time, I can hold it in my mind. I never again will go down underground. I never again will go down underground. Shin shin.
So the 1st of May I was in school, the day the tinker came, with his wild brown eyes like a frightened hare and his head of thatch and flame. We liked the length of his bare brown legs, the patches on his clothes, the grimy strength of his unwashed hands and the freckles around his nose. The master polished his rimless specs and stared at me with admiration. Then he stood him up on his shaky bench and he called on him for a recitation. Sure, the tinker boy, he looked at our laughing lips, but then with a voice like the singing birds, he did the master's bidding, so and these were his recited words. Oh, me father's in jail for sheep stealing, my mother's as black as a witch, my sister ran off at the Sherdons, and me brother, he's dead drunk in a ditch. A Tralee jail, sure, it killed the devil, but a Tralee jail, it won't hold my da. I'll mend you a kittle for 1 and 4pence, and I'll take home the porter to be ma. Then he bowed his head, and the schoolhouse it shook with the laughter of everyone, and the master made me share my bench with my raggedy tinker son. And the days went by and he sat down there, his brown eyes still afraid. He heard the scholars dreamy hum and he turned to me and he said, "Oh sure, what do I want with Latin verbs and what do I want with Grecian words, when all the music I'll ever need, sure, it rings in the throats of the singing birds." But he stayed at school, and his flowering mind it grew swift like the swooping hawk, till came the day when we both said goodbye to our swoon master who smelt of chalk. And he took to the life of the rugged roads, and to the loves of the tinker clan. They tied my hands to an office bench, and my soul to a clock's cold hands. And I often think of my tinker friend, and I cursed my crooked luck that didn't make me a tinker's son and I fighting the road to Puck, with a red-haired wife and a piebald horse and a splendid caravan, and we going the road with the Cartys and the Wards, the O'Briens and the Coffey clan. And the years went by, and the troubles came, and I found myself again back where we this sweated on that worn-out bench by the mountain and the rain. They put a trench coat on my back and in my hands a gun, and there up high on that mountain side I found my tinker son. And there on the slopes of those Kerry hills our love grew still more strong, as we listened to the singing birds give their thimblefuls of song. There came a truce, and I shook his hand for a while our fighting done, but I never spoke a word again to my raggedy tinker son. 'Tis many years, the years since he passed away, and over the roads the vans wheeled gaily to horse and to cattle fair, the O'Briens and the Coffey clan, and our tinker boy should be back again to the road and to the life he knew. But sure, I put a bullet through his brain in 1922. Just to finish and say that was the first recitation that I probably ever did for Clondrohid in score, first year, 1969, and we had a lot of good days. And as for tonight, it's marvellous to be back here with all the fellas that I.
Before you say any more, we want to hear the papist and the prod.
Yeah.
Because that's what we remember you most.
Before we finish.
Just to say that it's great to be here with friends that I grew up with. People from Clondrohid School, Carrignimmer School, Monifluke School. We played together, we grew up together, we had communion together, we had confirmation together, and we had great days. And you couldn't be with nicer people. And I'm delighted that we're all here again tonight from Clondrohid, Monifluke and Carriganima of Clondrohid.
Come on here.
Then Creedon, I always think that the singing didn't come from the Creedons at all, came from the other side of the house, it came from the Loonies. I was born and raised in Sandy Row, Lowlands Prod. I stood for good King Willie, that noble man of God. My motto was no surrender. My flag the Union Jack, and every 12th I proudly marched to Finney and back. A loyal son of Ulster, a true blue, that was me, prepared to fight, prepared to die for faith and for liberty. As well as that a Linfield man as long as I could mind, and I had no time for Catholics or any of that kind. But sure, one night in Bangor I met wee Rosie Green. The minute I laid my eyes on her I knew she was my queen, and when I saw she fancied me, my mind was all a buzz. But sure, I clean forgot to ask her what her religion was. Next time we met I said to her, I'm a proddy, staunch and true. And she replied, I'm a Catholic, and I'm just as staunch as you. Those words were harsh and bitter, but then sure, suddenly like this, all the centuries of hatred were all forgotten in a kiss. Then the troubles really started. Her folks, they went raving mad, and when mine heard about it, sure they were twice as bad. My father said that from that day he would hang his head in shame, and sure, by a strange coincidence, sure Rosie's father said the same. My mother cried her eyes out and said I would rue the day when I let a papish hussy steal my loyal heart away. And Rosie's mother said when she recovered from the blow that she would rather have the devil than a man from Sandy Row. We were married in a papist church on the other side of town. That's how Rosie wanted it, and I couldn't leave her down. But the priest was nice and kind to us, and he made me feel at home. I'm sure he pitied both of us because our families didn't come. The rooms we went to live in had nothing but the walls, far away from Sandy Row and further from the falls. But that's the way we wanted it, because both of us knew well that back amongst the crowds there, life for us it would be just hell. But life out there for Rosie, it was lonely, I well knew, and of course we had our wee religious differences too. At dinner time on Friday, when Rosie gave me fish, I looked at it and then at her and I said, that's not my dish. Then Sunday came and I lay on when she got up at 8. But Rosie turned to me and said, get up or you'll be late. You've got a church to go to and that's where you should be. So up you get this minute, you'll be part of the road with me. We left the house together and we parted down the line, and she went off to her church and I went off to mine. But all throughout the service, although we were apart, I knew that we were both worshipping together in our hearts. The weeks and months, they went quickly by, and then there came the day when Rosie upped and told me that a wee child was on the way. We went down upon our knees that night, and we prayed to God above to give our child two gifts alone, tolerance and love. We wrote and told our families they never used to call. We thought the news it might soften them, and so it didn't all. But I was disillusioned when I saw just why they came. Sure, it wasn't to be friendly or to make it up again. Rosie's mother said the child it must be an RC, and sure, mine said it would have to be a Protestant like me. The rows before the wedding were surely meek and mild compared with all the rumpus that was raised about our child. From both sides of the family insults and threats were hurled. Oh, what a way to welcome a wee babe into this world. The child it must be a Catholic, the child it must be a prod. But sure, the last and the loudest voice I heard was the almighty voice of God. And to his almighty power I had to bow my head, for 1 hour after it was born, our poor wee babe was dead. That night I sat by Rosie's side, and just before the dawn I kissed her as she left me to join our angel's son. And my heart was nearly broken inside them lonely walls. Oh, where the hell's the Shankill, where the hell's the Falls? But that was many years ago. Many years of grief and pain when I'd have given all I had to see her face again. But my troubles are nearly over now. I'll see her soon, I know. The doctor told me yesterday I hadn't long to go. And when I go up yonder, they'll let me in, I hope. But when they ask me who I'm for, King Billy or the Pope, you bet I'll take no chances. I'll tell them straight and all I'm a Loyal Lawrence proddy, but your Rosie loved John Paul. And one way or another I know they'll let me through. And Rosie'll be waiting, and our little angel too. And then the child will lead us, the papist and the prod, up those steps together and into the hands of God.
I'm securing
Okay. Lonely I wander through scenes of my childhood. They bring back to memory the happy days of yore. Gone are the old folks, the house stands deserted. No light in the window, no welcome at the door. Here's where the children played games on the heather. Here's where they sailed their wee boats on the burn. Where are they now? Some are dead, some have wandered. No more to their homes will those children return. Lonely the house now, and lonely the moorland. The children are scattered, the old folks are gone. Why stand I here like a ghost or a shadow? It's time I were moving. It's time I passed on. That's it.
Lovely Mary.
I left my home in Ireland, it's 20 years ago. I came across to England, that's where all the paddies go. To the capital of Warwickshire, that's where me quest did end. It was there I ended up with 7 others in a bed. Or all over Paddy, lying a wee bit Joe. Left your elbow, Johnny, and don't dislocate my toe. Leave go the blankets, Basil, don't strip me curry scamp. Or 'tis all you'll hear in England, in the digs in Birmingham. Oh, when first I came to Birmingham, I quickly got a job. Oh, making tea for navvies, and my pay was 50 bob. To find a place to rest me bones, it was me biggest flight. You could hear the other lodgers shout when we're in bed at night. Or all over Paddy, lying a wee bit Joe. Oh, lift your elbow, Johnny, and don't dislocate my toe. Leave go the blankets, Basil, don't strip me curry scamp. Or 'tis all you'll hear in England, in the digs in Birmingham. Now I slept in many places since I left my mammy's knees. In prison cells and boss houses, it was my flight, you see. Like sardines we used to push when into bed we'd cram to share the board and lodgings in the digs in Birmingham. Or all over Paddy, lying a wee bit Joe. Lift your elbow, Johnny, and don't dislocate my toe. Leave go the blankets, Basil, don't strip me curry scamp. Or 'tis all you'll hear in England, in the digs in Birmingham. That's all you'll hear in England, in the digs in Birmingham. Ooh. When from the mountain calling soft to me, the smell of scented heather brings bitter memories. The wild and lonely eagle up in the summer sky flies high o'er Shanna Golden, where my young Willie lies. Oh, do you remember, darling, we walked the moonlit road. I held you in my arms, love, I'd never let you go. Our hands were entwined, my love, all in the pale moonlight, by the fields of Shanna Golden, on a lonely windy year. And I thought, my darling Willie, all through the summer days, I heard the rifles firing in the mountains far away. I held you in my arms, love, your blood ran clear and bright, and you died by Shanna Golden on a lonely summer's night. But that was long ago, my love, and our sun grows fine and tall. Oh, the hills, they are at peace again, all the Saxon strangers gone. There's roses on your grave, my love, there's an eagle in the sky, flies high o'er Shanna Golden, where my young Willie lies.
I was coming out from town one day, and my second daughter, Neve, she's going away to Australia, leaving me there, and you put for her. She said, Dad, could you write a song about my Uncle John? I said, Neve, no bother at all. She started away, she said. So I said, right. My name is Neve the Lanov, and my father, he is Con. And I've a big, strong uncle, and they call him Big Hand John. It is he who has those greyhounds, and he's a trainer now, you see. But on Saturday night he dresses up, and he goes to Club 33. 'Tis there he might meet a girl, and he'd take her for a stroll. We all know what he's after, and it's not a bit of cure. But John, he will be doing the same when he's gone 63. He likes to play with a bit of fun that's above a girl's knee. He is having now the station. He's going to give them turkey ham and Neville's brack. And when the mass is over, we will have a bit of crack. John will sing Shanna Golden and the Valley of Knockanure, and after all the prayers in the house that night, well, John will be so pure. Now the station almost was put off because Johnny got knocked down. Below near Larry Buckley's, that's in top of Macroom town. A transit van came speeding up, and they know in a bleep blew off John's two doors. It broke his side glass, and it left John thrown in the street. So the station it is over, and things went off just right. The splash that John put on for us, 'twas the talk of the place that night. But it's poor Magella should have got the credit. Lot of mercy there. For she was cleaning there for a month. Of course the two would fight next week, and John would call her a good girl. And this is an old song that we all know well. If I could only start over and have a new life to begin, well, I would not be the rover or float like a leaf in the wind. For I'm dreaming tonight of old sweethearts, and believe me, I've had quite a few. But I never dreamt of old sweetheart the way that I dream about you. Yes, I let you slip through my fingers when foolishly searching around. But if I had my life to live over, I know you would settle me down. 'Cause I'm dreaming tonight of old sweethearts, and believe me, I've had quite a few. But I never dreamt of old sweethearts the way that I dreamed about you. I've been diagnosed now with Parkinson's. That is what the Lord threw at me. But he gave it to more famous people, Pope John Paul and Muhammad Ali. I'm dreaming tonight of a cure now. But fuck it, lads, I know that's not going to be. But my neurologist told me just last week, Con, with your attitude, you live until you're 93, so who gives a shit? So I'm dreaming tonight of old sweethearts, and believe me, I've had quite a few. But I never dreamt of old sweethearts, Mary, the way that I dream about you.
Oh, I was going to say that in case people have forgotten that Clondrohid GAA club were the first club in County Cork to win an All-Ireland score title, and 'twas in the junior score, and 'twas exactly 35 years ago this month a Clondrohid trio won the music and the junior score in the at the boxing stadium in Dublin in February 1978. And the three people were Noreen and Joan Sullivan and Matthew Kelleher.
Because we're next door to Kerry. How oft do my thoughts in their fancy take flight to the homes of my childhood away, to the days when each patriot vision seemed right, ere I dreamed that those joys should decay. When my heart was as light as the wild winds that blow down the Mardyke through each elm tree, where we sported and played 'neath a green leafy shade on the banks of my own lovely Lee, where we sported and played 'neath a green leafy shade on the banks of my own lovely Lee. And then in the springtime, mid laughter and song, shall I ever forget those sweet hours with the friends of my youth where we rambled along, neath our green mossy banks and wild flowers. And then when the evening sun sinks in the west, spreads her golden light over the sea, the maid with her lover, the wild daisies dress, on the banks of my old lovely Dee. The maid with her lover, the wild daisies dress, on the banks of my own lovely Lee. Susa Kokik.
They come from the Christmas tree farms and the factories too, and they all soon forget who they are. And the cares of today are soon washed away as they sit on a stool by the bar. And the girl with green eyes in a Rolling Stone shirt doesn't look as she walks on the ramp. And the man at the end is a very good friend of a man who sells cars second hand. Down at the Red Rose Cafe in the harbour, there by a port just outside Amsterdam. Everyone shares in the songs and the laughter. Everyone there is so happy to be there. Well, the salesman relaxes with a few pints of beer, and he tries not to speak about trade. And the poet won't write any verses tonight. He might sing a sweet serenade. So pull up a chair and forget about life. It's a good thing to do now and then. And if you like a few, I have an idea. Tomorrow let's all meet again. Down at the Red Rose Cafe in the harbour, there by a port just outside Amsterdam. Everyone shares in the songs and the laughter. Everyone there is so happy to be there. Down at the Red Rose Cafe in the harbour, there by a port just outside Amsterdam. Everyone shares in the songs and the laughter. Everyone there is so happy to be there. And everyone here is so happy to be here.
Thank you, Dan, very much. Thank you very much, Dan.
When I was 9 in the harvest time, I crossed the orchard wall. The moon was bright and the apples ripe that upon the ground did fall. We filled our sacks and we made our way back new adventure still to find. In an orchard beneath the Cumras, in that sweet Dungarvan time. I crossed the orchard wall again when I was just 13. It was, I think, to be my first drink of cider and poteen. I remember well that it tasted like hell, and I hoped that the pain would end soon. In an orchard beneath the Cumras, in that sweet Dungarvan moon. And when I was 19 years of age, I crossed that wall with pride. My Annie with the long dark hair was walking by my side. Our clothes we lost, we turned and tossed, all innocence was gone. In an orchard beneath the Cumras, in that sweet Dungarvan dawn. And when I was 21 years old, I married Annie there. The apple blossoms from the trees looked nicer in her hair. And when that lovely day was done, we danced away night through the trees. In an orchard beneath the Cumras, in that sweet Dungarvan breeze. I'm 35 and much alive, with children round my door. 2 girls and 1 fine strapping son, and we have hopes for more. We teach them all that lies ahead, and there's plenty to teach still. In an orchard beneath the Cumras, in those sweet Dungarvan hills. I'm 81, 4 children grown, and my Annie is long since gone. My days were good, as well they should, but it's time now that I moved on. And when I'll die, I will want to lie beneath the whispering trees, with my Annie beneath the Cumras, by the sweet Dungarvan seas. And when I am gone, may we be one with the air and the land and the foam. In an orchard beneath the Cumras, at our sweet Dungarvan home. Weather gets better, I'll head for Mayo. So let that be an end to the bitter wind.
The end
Of the winter. Knows where I'm going soon as spring comes around. I can't see a thing, but I know from the sound that they'll be planting potatoes in the hard stony ground, and praying to God we enough to go round. So let that be an end to the bitter wind, the end of the winter. And now comes the springtime with the songs as before, is it? I've been on my travels and I've made up some more. I was there last September, way back on a down, when the boat bringing people to Galway went down. So let that be an end to the bitter wind, the end of the winter. Smishrelli and Philel and Ocus is grog. Sulia Gonzalez Lecunus from Crog. No shearer master Lascellus Macree. Fon agus Tership Gader Mushri. Be an end to the bitter wind, the end of the winter. Good girl.
When sisters shared the driving as we left the city lights in a clapped out Morris Minor going west on Friday night. The heater wasn't working, we never had a spare, and we called the old car flattery, for it took us everywhere. And when we stopped to pitch the tent, it always seemed to rain. 'Twas then that I discovered we'd forgot the pegs again, and I couldn't get the campfire lit, no matter how I tried. Don't you remember? We had roadside stops for bread and cheese and supermarket wine, when the world was ours and I was yours, and I thought you were mine. Do you remember the Galway races and the man in Harris Tweed? Because he knew your father, he said he'd do us a good deed. And the horse we put our money on, I'd swear he's running still. We were staying in a boarding house and we couldn't pay the bill. And you laughed when I went overboard, and you told me not to swear. You said the town is full of Americans, let's go busking in Ayr Square. And the Blarney Stone and the leprechauns will sure to see us through. Don't you remember? I sang Danny Boy in Galway Bay at least 100 times, when the world was ours and I was yours, and I thought you were mine. The Lonesome Verse, you called me from the airport just before you caught your plane, and told me you were leaving and that I was not to blame, and you hoped that I would understand and that we'd always be good friends. But I knew by the way you spoke we'd never meet again, when the world was ours and I was yours, and I thought you were mine. All the roadside stops, you know for what, and you liked a drop of wine, when the world was ours and I was yours, and I thought you were mine. Here you are.
Oh, an Irish mother writing to her son so far away. I meant to send shamrock to wear on Patrick's Day. Oh, the shamrock is a tender plant, its beauty soon would fade. So a sprig of Irish heather I'm sending you instead. All together. A sprig of Irish heather, and it's seen all kinds of weather. It stood the heat of summer and survived the winter snow. Oh, I'm sending to remind you of the friends you left behind you in Tyrone among the bushes and the days of long ago. Oh, remember Torridana and the Mass Rock standing there. How we oft times knelt together and whispered childish prayer. Many times since then I wondered when the evening shadows fell. So I plucked this heather from the spot where once we used to kneel. Sad verse. Oh, the years from me are slipping, and I know I'm growing old. By the fireside lonely setting, when the nights are dark and cold. But I know your smile would cheer me and make sunshine out of gloom. So come back to me, a Cushla, when the heather is in bloom. Just a spring of Irish heather, and it's seen all kinds of weather. It stood the heat of summer and survived the winter snow. Oh, I'm sending to remind you of the friends you left behind you in Tyrone among the bushes in the days of long ago. Just a spring of Irish heather left with love from long ago. Oh.
And he's Tommy out this year.
He remembers the first time he met her. He remembers the first thing she said. He remembers the night as he held her, and the night that they said they'd be wed. He remembers her sweet way of saying, honey, is something gone wrong? He remembers the night as he kissed her, and the night that he wrote her this song. I'll give you a daisy a day, dear. I'll give you a daisy a day. I will love you until the river runs down. As a kid they would take me for candy. How I love to go tripping along. And then we'd walk up to the hilltop, and the old man would sing her this song. I'll give you a daisy a day, dear. I'll give you a daisy a day. I will love you until the rivers run still, and the four winds will all blow away. Now he walks down the street in the evening, and he stops by the old candy store, and somehow I think he's believing he's holding her hand like before. And he feels all the love walking with him, and he thinks of the things she might say. And the old man walks up to the hilltop, and he gives her a daisy a day. I'll give you a daisy a day, dear. I'll give you a daisy a day. I will love you until the rivers run still, and the four winds will all blow away.
Man, Dan, I love to see you come here.
As Penny Cocktree said, the Republican unfortunately is coming out with me with drinking. It must be the loonies. Has to be. There's a uniform that's hanging in what's known as Father's room. A uniform so simple in its style. It has no braids of gold upon, no buttons shining through, yet my mother has preserved it all the while. One day she made me try it on, the wish was mine for years. To the memory of your father, dear, she said. And when she placed the brown belt, she was smiling through her tears as she placed the broad black brimmer on me head. 'Twas just a broad black brimmer with ribbons stained and torn by the carelessness of many the mountain breeze. An old trench coat that wore battle stains and worn, and breeches almost threadbare at the knees. A Sam Brown belt with a buckle big and strong, and a holster that's been empty many the day. For men like Ireland's freedom, the one that's sure to lead 'em will wear the broad black brimmer of the IRA. It was the uniform that was worn by my father long ago, when he reached my mother's homestead on the run. It was the uniform me father wore in that little church below, when Father Mackey blessed the pair as one. And at the bowl receiving, at the parting of the waves, he wore it when he marched out with the rest. And when they bore his body down that sad, that lonely day, they placed the broad black brimmer on his chest. 'Twas just a broad black brimmer with ribbons stained and torn by the carelessness of many the mountain breeze. An old trench coat that wore battle stains and torn, and breeches almost threadbare at the knees. A Sam Brown belt with the buckle big and strong, and a coulter that's been meant, but not for long. For men like Ireland's freedom, the one that's sure to lead 'em will wear the broad black brimmer of the IRA.
Right. This session, McNary, this session is on again on the 19th of February next year. Just to remind you, before McNary sings.
Missy. From Derry Quay, now we sailed away on the 23rd of May. We were boarded by a pleasant crew, bound for America. Fresh water there, now we did take on 5,000 gallons or more. In case we run short, going to New York, far away from Shamrock Shore. Well, we sailed 3 days, we were all seasick, no man on board was free. We were all confined unto our bunks, with no one to pity poor me. Well, no father dear, no mother kind, to hold up my head when 'twas sore, which made me think more of the girl that I left known by these green Shamrock Shore. Well, we safely reached the other side now in 23 days, and we were taken as passengers by a man and led round in 6 different ways. Well, we each drank up a parting glass in case we might never meet more, and we drank the health of old Ireland now in Paddy's green Shamrock Shore. And so fare thee well, the sweet Liza dear now, and likewise to Derry town. And twice farewell to me comrade boys who dwelt on that sainted ground. And if fortune ever should favour me, right to have money in store, I'll come back and I'll wed the sweet lassie that I left now on Paddy's green Shamrock Shore.
Very well done. Thanks, Michael.
Anyway, all right. There's
A sweet garden spot in my memory. It's the place I was born in and reared. It's long years ago since I left it, and return there I will if I'm spared. All the days in my heart I will cherish, contented although we were poor. But the songs that we sang in the days they were gone, on the stone outside Dan Murphy's door. Dan Murphy would bring out his fiddle, while his daughter looks after the store. The music would sing, and the songs we would sing, on the stone outside Dan Murphy's door.
Well, now when I was a young man, I carried me pack, and I lived the free life of a rover. From the Murray's green basin to the dusty outback, I waltzed my Matilda all over. But in 1915, my country said, son, it's time to stop rambling, there's work to be done. So they gave me a tin hat, and they gave me a gun, and they sent me away to the war. And the band played waltzing Matilda as the ship pulled away from the quay. And amid all the tears, flag waving and cheers, we sailed out for Gallipoli. It's well I remember the terrible day when our blood stained the sand and the water, and how in that hell that they call Sugla Bay We were butchered like lambs to the slaughter. Johnny Turk, he was ready. Oh, he primed himself well. He rained us with bullets and he showered us with shell. And in 5 minutes flat, we were all blown to hell. Nearly blew us back home to Australia. And the band played Waltzing Matilda as we stopped to bury our slaves. And we buried ours, and the Turks buried theirs. And it started all over again. Those who are living just try to survive in that mad world of blood, death and fire. And for 10 weary weeks I kept myself alive, though around me the corpses piled higher. Then a big Turkish shell knocked me arse overhead, and when I awoke in my hospital bed and saw what it had done, and I wished I were dead. Never knew there were worse things than dying. For no more I'll go waltzing Matilda all around the green bush far and near. For to hunt in pegs a man needs both legs. No more waltzing Matilda for me. They collected the wounded, the crippled, the maimed, and they shipped us back home to Australia. The armless, the legless, the blind and the insane, those proud wounded heroes of Suglum. And when the ship pulled into Circular Quay, and I looked at the place where my legs used to be, and thank Christ there was no one there waiting for me, for to grieve and to mourn and to pity. And the band played Waltzing Matilda as they carried us down the gangway, and nobody cheered. They just stood there and stared. They turned all their faces away. So now, every April I sit on my porch and I watch the parade pass before me. I see my old comrades, how proudly they march, renewing their dreams and past glories. I see them old men, all tired, stiff and sore, the weary old heroes of a forgotten war. And the young people ask, what are they marching for? And I ask myself the same question. And the band played Waltzing Matilda, and the old men still answer the call. But year after year, the numbers get fewer. Someday no one will march there at all. Waltzing Matilda, waltzing Matilda, who'll come waltzing Matilda with me? And their ghosts may be heard as they march by the Billy Bun. Oh, come a waltzing Matilda with me.
Now, lads, listen, It's time to go home, I suppose. Angie, you're looking at me. We'll all sing together. The last song, sing it together. Oh, of all the money that e'er I had, I spent it in good company, and all the harm that e'er I caused, alas, was to none but me. And what I've done for want of wit, in memory now I can't recall. So fill to me the parting glass. Good night and joy be with you. Next verse.
Of all the harm that ever I done, alas, it was to none but me.
Oh, if I had money and enough to spend, and some leisure time to spend a while, there is a lassie in this town who surely has my heart beguiled. Her rosy cheeks and ruby lips, I own she has my heart enthralled. So to me the parting glass, good night and joy be with you all. Good night, and joy be with you all. Good night, Mary. I love you.